If you are anything like the rest of us, you've probably searched for AI trends recently.
Oh, yeah, we all have.
Right. And if you did, you were probably just immediately overwhelmed by this absolute flood
Right.
of identical, height-filled lists.
Yeah, the endless slide decks.
Exactly. Just endless predictions about humanoid armies or like superintelligence taking over the world by next Tuesday and the total end of human labor.
It gets old fast.
It really does. I mean, if you're an IT director or a finance lead or just, someone trying to figure out how this tech actually impacts your day-to-day career, it is exhausting. It's just repetitive information overload.
Yeah, totally.
So if you're looking for the antidote to that hype, you are in the exact right place today.
Because it is, frankly, incredibly easy to get lost in the science fiction of it all right now. I mean, the projections out there are super loud, but they often just completely ignore what is technically and legally feasible inside a highly regulated corporate environment.
Yeah, which is why today's deep dive is laser-focused on reality.
Mm.
We are unpacking an exclusive August 2026 report, and it's authored by a group called the Agentic Co.
Right.
And the entire focus of this report is on what is actually running in production right now, today.
Yeah, and I think it really helps to understand the vantage point of the source material here. So the Agentics Co., they're an enterprise AI transformation firm headquartered in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And they aren't just writing, theoretical thought leadership pieces for LinkedIn. They're the ones actually out there building this infrastructure for clients across CPG, retail, manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, and BFSI.
That's a massive footprint. And I think what really stands out to me about their approach in this report is their methodology.
Yeah, how so?
Well, they aren't walking into an enterprise and just trying to, sprinkle a thin layer of AI over a legacy ecosystem. Because we all know that doesn't work.
Right, it never does.
They are actually re-engineering the entire business stack to be AI native from the ground up, scaling from POC to global rollout. And they're doing this using agentic AI and multi-agent systems to deliver measurable ROI in just 6 to 12 months.
Which is huge.
Okay.
Because that thin layer of AI, what we might call the chatbot phase, is honestly already obsolete for serious enterprise operations.
Totally.
I mean, if you've been following the space, you know how retrieval augmented generation, or RJ, works. You ask a bot a question, it searches a database, and it gives you an answer.
Right. It's stateless.
Exactly. It's stateless. It's super useful for, drafting an email or maybe summarizing a dense PDF, but the operating model of your job doesn't actually change. A human still has to initiate every single task, judge the output, and crucially remember what operational step has to happen next.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this distinction between a stateless tool and a multi-agent system, that seems to be the core of the entire report.
It is, yeah.
So if we look at the first wave of AI, it was basically like having a super fast intern, right?
That's a good way to put it.
They could fetch a file or write a rough draft, but they still needed you to check their math and literally tell them exactly what to do next every single time.
Right, you're managing their every move.
Exactly. But the second wave, what the report refers to as agentic work cells, this feels more like hiring a mid-level manager who actually owns the whole outcome.
It's a really useful comparison, but let's look at the underlying architecture there, because Wave 2 changes the fundamental unit of work. These new systems are event-driven and stateful.
Meaning they remember things.
Yes, exactly. An agentic AI can be assigned a broad responsibility that plays out over weeks, not just seconds. It can invoke different software tools via APIs. It can literally pause and wait for a vendor to reply to an email. It can hand off tasks to other specialized agents, and it maintains a memory of that entire workflow.
Wow. So it's really not a tool you use anymore. It's a digital colleague you manage.
Precisely. And the enterprise adoption curve completely reflects that shift. Gartner is actually forecasting that by the end of this year, 2026, roughly 40% of enterprise applications will have these AI agents embedded directly into their architecture.
Wait, 40%?
Yeah.
What was that baseline just a year ago? Because 40% sounds massive.
It was less than 5% in 2025.
Oh, wow. That is a staggering jump.
Yeah.
That's not a gradual adoption curve at all. That is a complete architectural category shift happening in a single budget cycle.
It's a massive shift. And to understand how it works in practice, the report breaks down these continuous operations. They use the example of a CFO agent.
Right.
So in the old model, a financial analyst might use AI to query a database to help build a report. But an agentic work cell operates continuously in the background.
Without being prompted.
Exactly. Imagine it's Thursday afternoon. The agent pulls the latest liquidity ratios from the ERP system. It cross-references that with, say, a sudden supply chain delay that was just logged in the warehouse management software.
Which a human CFO might not even know about yet.
Right. And then it calculates the impact on next week's cash flow and proactively drafts a mitigation strategy for the human CFO to review by Friday morning. It didn't wait to be asked.
That is wild. It's actively hunting for anomalies based on just a generalized mandate to protect cash flow.
Exactly.
And the report also mentions accounts receivable teams using this, right?
Yeah, that's another great use case.
Because instead of a standalone script that just, fires off a generic reminder email 30 days after an invoice, which we've had forever, the enterprise is deploying a cell that owns the entire collections process.
Yep. It manages the intake, defines the process, and it can even adjust the approval limits based on a specific client's historical payment behavior.
Which is so much more nuanced than a basic if-then rule.
And it tracks the outcome metrics, which fundamentally changes how enterprises measure software value. You aren't justifying the purchase based on server uptime or how many API calls were made anymore.
Right. Nobody cares about that if the work isn't getting done.
Exactly. You are justifying it based on business outcomes, like, did our collections cycle time actually drop? Did procurement lead times improve? But, and this is a really massive but, to actually treat an AI like a digital worker, you need entirely new scaffolding. A large language model with a clever system prompt is not a digital worker.
No, definitely not. And this brings us right into the governance problem, which honestly might be the most daunting part of this whole transition.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if we are essentially hiring these autonomous digital managers, the immediate question is control. Like, how do we stop a procurement agent from misinterpreting a random inventory signal and accidentally buying 10,000 laptops? Or, violating a strict data privacy policy?
It's the central hurdle of the entire movement. The biggest constraint on enterprise AI adoption was actually never about model intelligence. Yeah, it wasn't about parameter counts or making the AI smarter. It was always about proving what the agent did and under whose authority it did it. The new infrastructure control point is the identity layer. Enterprises are having to give AI agents first-class identities, exactly like human employees.
Okay, I'm struggling to picture this technically. How does an IT department actually issue credentials to a piece of code? Does the agent literally have its own, single sign-on profile?
It's actually a bit more mechanical than that, but yes, essentially. IT departments are integrating agents directly into their identity and access management systems, their IAMs.
Oh, okay.
So the agent is assigned a specialized service account mapped to an agentic profile. Before that code can take any action, say, updating a customer record in Salesforce, the system performs a real-time permission check against the exact same access controls that govern your human staff.
So it can't just bypass the rules.
Exactly. The enterprise has to be able to prove during a security audit exactly what data the agent accessed, why it made a specific decision, and what guardrails were in place.
Here's where it gets really interesting for the listener, especially if you manage any kind of IT infrastructure.
Yeah.
If an enterprise has, let's say, 20 different agents doing different things across HR, finance, and logistics. This sounds like an absolute nightmare to track.
It is.
It's like having an orchestra with 20 brilliant soloists, but absolutely no conductor. How do they actually collaborate without just stepping all over each other's data?
That fragmentation is the exact problem the industry is wrestling with right now. The Salesforce 2026 Connectivity Benchmark Report actually found that the average enterprise already runs around a dozen AI agents, and roughly half of them operate completely in silos with zero coordination.
Wow.
But the desire to fix this is very evident. There has been an over 1,400% surge in enterprise inquiries, specifically about multi-agent orchestration.
Wait, 1,400%?
Yeah. In just a year.
That's just companies realizing they are losing control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Companies desperately need that conductor. And this is creating a completely new category of enterprise software. Historically, you had systems of record like your ERPs and CRMs. You had systems of intelligence like your data lakes. And you had systems of engagement, which are your user interfaces.
But these autonomous agents don't fit neatly into any of those legacy boxes.
They don't. Agents need an overarching system that decides what work needs doing, who should do it, what authority applies, and whether the outcome was actually achieved. The problem is, major vendors often build these solutions just to lock you into their specific suite of tools.
Right. So if a company uses this messy mix of SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, and like a dozen custom legacy apps, which is basically every company, a vendor-locked AI agent is going to hit a brick wall immediately.
Which is exactly why the report highlights neutral orchestration layers, platforms operating as a system of agency, like assistance.ai.
Okay.
They sit above the existing fragmented tech stack, connecting things without forcing a massive multi-year vendor consolidation. And they do this using three distinct layers.
Okay, let's look at the underlying architecture there because these terms get thrown around so loosely.
Fair enough. So first is the context engine. This isn't just a database. It's a real-time ingestion pipeline that pulls from hundreds of enterprise applications to build a live understanding of your people, your processes, and your active documents.
Got it.
Second is the semantic layer.
Wait, let's pause on the semantic layer because that sounds like jargon. What does that actually look like in practice? The source says it maps relationships so agents can reason with relational intelligence.
Yeah.
But how does an AI know that a specific invoice in SAP relates to a fragmented Slack conversation from 3 days ago?
It does this through vector embeddings and graph databases. The semantic layer mathematically maps the relationships between distinct objects across all these silos.
Okay.
So when the agent looks at that SAP invoice, the graph database instantly highlights the mathematical connection to that Slack thread discussing a vendor delay. It isn't just searching for matching keywords, it understands the operational relationship between those two data points.
Oh, wow. That bridges a massive gap because keywords fail all the time.
Exactly.
The third layer.
The action engine. This is what actually executes the multi-step work across those systems, enforcing those strict IAM permission checks and autologs we talked about earlier.
Right.
The report shares a really cool real-world case study of a remediation and diagnostics contractor handling incredibly dense, highly technical tender documentation.
Sounds painful for humans to do.
Oh, totally. So they deployed a coordinated multi-agent team. One agent specialized purely in data extraction. A second agent used the semantic layer to determine the proper workflow path based on that data. And a third agent acted entirely as a compliance auditor, reviewing the revisions made by the other two.
So they are literally checking each other's work before a human even sees it.
Exactly. And by doing that, they cut document processing time by up to 90%, all while maintaining a 95% accuracy target.
That kind of operational speed is just wild. But this does raise a major reality check for me. If this multi-agent orchestration technology exists, and the governance frameworks are solidifying, like you said, why isn't every single Fortune 500 company fully automated today? What is the actual bottleneck keeping companies in, like pilot purgatory?
Well, if we look closely at the enterprise reality, the bottleneck is almost always data architecture.
Really? Just messy data?
Yes, because autonomous systems amplify bad data at machine speed. A subtle categorization mistake that a human analyst would catch intuitively. That gets executed and repeated 10,000 times by an agent before anyone even notices.
That's terrifying. But, I always assumed the solution to that was just volume, like feed the AI models more data, give them access to absolutely everything, and they will eventually figure out the patterns on their own.
It's actually the exact opposite. Broad, unstructured access to enterprise data is catastrophic for an agent.
Oh, wow. Why?
It's not just about hallucinations, though that's bad. It's about computational cost and latency. If you feed an agent the entire uncurated history of your company's SharePoint just to answer a simple procurement question, the compute bill will skyrocket and the agent will take 10 minutes to formulate an answer.
Right. It's like giving someone the entire Library of Congress to answer a simple question. They just get lost in the stacks.
Exactly. The fix is what the report calls contextual slices. Agents need to receive the absolute smallest, most hyper-relevant and properly authorized slice of context required for the specific microtask in front of them.
Just what they need, nothing more.
Right. And they need clear data provenance. They must know exactly where that slice came from and its timestamp. Precision in data delivery beats dumping data every single time.
Which means if a company's underlying data architecture is a mess, their AI agents are going to be a complete mess. You can't just bypass bad data hygiene.
You absolutely cannot. And this leads directly to how autonomy is actually earned within an organization. The report outlines an autonomy maturity ladder moving from level 0 to level 5.
Okay, walk me through that.
Well, the most common trap companies fall into is treating autonomy as an on-off switch. Executives read a hype piece and demand their teams jump straight to level 5, which is adaptive, where agents are independently proposing operational improvements and optimizing workflows without any human oversight.
I have to imagine demanding level 5 autonomy on day one usually ends in a highly public disaster.
Or, more commonly, it just stalls out completely because the legal and risk departments hit the brakes hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The successful enterprises in 2026 aren't aiming for level 5 across the board. The real traction is happening in levels 2 through 4, applied to very strictly bounded operations.
So what are those?
Level 2 is co-work, where the human owns the process but the agent performs bounded steps. Level 3 is delegate, where the agent plans and completes the task, but a human manages any escalations.
And what does level 4 look like practically?
Level 4 is exception managed. The agent owns the entire normal operating path. It processes the invoices, approves the standard ones, routes the payments. The human is entirely out of the loop until the agent hits a predefined policy exception like, say, a vendor requesting a 50% price increase. Then, and only then, does the human step in.
It's about finding that sweet spot where the AI does the heavy lifting, but the human remains the ultimate safety net for those weird edge cases.
Exactly. And this targeted approach is what fuels the final major shift we're seeing. Land-improved deployment models are beating big bang corporate transformations.
What does land improve mean in this context?
The companies actually succeeding aren't announcing massive, vague, company-wide AI overhauls. They pick one highly measurable operation that is currently bleeding capital, they prove the multi-agent system works there, and then they expand.
Okay, so the source material had some aggressive stats on deployment timelines for this land improve approach. They claim the average time from a proof of concept to full production for a well-scoped operation is now sitting at just 4 weeks. I have to challenge that. 4 weeks from pilot to live production in an enterprise environment. The procurement cycle for office coffee takes 4 weeks. How are they deploying AI that fast?
I know. It sounds impossible if you're thinking about traditional legacy IT implementations, but they achieve that speed specifically through scoping. By using platforms that sit above the legacy systems, they aren't rewriting the core ERP mainframe.
Yeah.
They are building an API abstraction layer, allowing the agents to operate within a tightly bounded sandbox. Because the surface area of the project is so narrow, they bypass the massive bureaucratic integration stalls.
Okay, that makes sense. You aren't replacing the plumbing, you're just attaching a smarter valve.
Exactly.
But the report also mentions a retail deployment that was rolled out to over 700 store locations in 14 weeks.
Yeah, that was a big one.
And it required multi-language support and individualized governance policies for different regions. What's the catch there? What breaks when you scale that fast?
The catch is that deployment isn't the finish line. It's the starting line. Going live in 14 weeks means the initial architecture is up and running. But Level 4 exception management requires continuous, aggressive monitoring. The system will hit edge cases daily in those early weeks.
Because reality is messy.
Right. But the ROI justifies the friction. A Fortune 500 global manufacturer used this scoped approach to process invoices 12 times faster, running end-to-end with full compliance checks.
12 times faster.
Yeah. And a financial services firm cut their quarterly compliance reporting time by 75% with 0 missed deadlines. Another manufacturer is running anomaly detection across 10 million pricing data points, getting alerts in minutes instead of waiting for a monthly manual review.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I mean, if you were an IT director, a supply chain manager, or a finance lead, the fundamental takeaway here is that the future of work has completely shifted.
It really has.
The fear of competing with a monolithic AI is totally misplaced. Your actual future involves managing teams of digital workers and figuring out how to integrate them into your existing processes safely.
And managing them requires a completely new framework of governance, relational intelligence, and structured autonomy. The endless slide decks warning of humanoid armies taking over are just a massive distraction from the reality of these agentic work cells, which are quietly and systematically revolutionizing the back office today.
And these transformations are actively happening right now, spearheaded by firms like the Agentics Co. And what's interesting about their approach is that they fuse agile strategy with hard ROI-led execution.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
They draw on the deep expertise you would expect from the world's top IT, consulting, and AI firms, but they deliver it without the bloated, slow-moving, big consultancy fees. Ultimately, their core mission is helping clients lower their total cost of ownership, massively boost operational efficiency, and enhance the consumer experience to acquire more customers.
Which is what every enterprise wants.
Exactly. If you were sitting there wondering how multi-agent systems could actually integrate into your own legacy workflows, it's really worth seeing how they map it out. You can dive deeper into their enterprise AI maturity assessments and solutions by visiting their site at https://theagentics.co.
This transition does raise a fascinating long-term question, though.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we've established that in 2026, the enterprises pulling ahead are the ones governing AI agents exactly like human employees, assigning them digital credentials, enforcing strict performance limits, and conducting rigorous audits on their work.
Right, treating them like staff.
Exactly. But as these agentic work cells continue to evolve, and as they increasingly optimize operations autonomously at level 4 and eventually level 5, what happens when a digital worker inevitably outperforms its human manager in understanding the complex nuances of a global operation?
No way.
In the enterprise of the near future, who is going to be giving the performance reviews?
Wow, that is a thought to keep you up at night. The digital manager scheduling a one-on-one to review our bottleneck metrics. Well, if you were feeling overwhelmed by the hype and those endless lists of AI trends, hopefully this deep dive was exactly the operational reality check you needed. The future isn't a science fiction movie. It's a new kind of colleague already waiting for you on the company network. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.